People who have found the love of your life. How did you do it? Story 1. At a party of a mutual friend group, I was hanging out when he walked in. I knew this group for a couple years but never met this guy. Turned out he lived in the next state over while he was in school. We were introduced and started talking. We ended up talking all night. It was the easiest conversation I ever had. It all felt so natural. Side note, there were many times when we should have met but didn't. When he lived in my state, we worked next door to each other, and he used to come into my work all the time. Yeah, coffee shop. And he was at several parties that I didn't attend. It's for the best because I had a boyfriend at the time, and he was still in his bad boy phase. A couple weeks later, I get a message on MySpace from the guy. We start talking and decide to meet at the halfway point for a date. The rest, as they say, is history. Been in love ever since. Story 2. Quite literally woke up one day with unexplained feelings for my best friend I didn't understand. This was sometime after coming out of a 10-year relationship, which ended when he said he doesn't believe in marriage and didn't want to marry me, despite getting an engagement ring and asking my parents' permission to marry me. This was very confusing for me. At first, these feelings for my best friend scared me. I was single and suddenly feeling things for my best friend I hadn't felt for anyone before. I tried to rationalize what I guess was already rational in my head by trying to make myself believe I didn't feel how I thought I did about my best friend. We had many open conversations and asked each other a lot of questions about what we want from a relationship and from our lives. We were on the same page with everything fundamentally important to both of us. This means when we compromise, it's never an attempt to uproot each other's fundamental beliefs. Instead, it's small changes and considerations. We skipped the getting to know each other stage as we already knew so much about each other. It was more a long-term compatibility inquiry. I've never felt this sort of happiness before. The differences with my best friend and my other relationships are, we both know what we want. We both want the same things. Our values are the same. We can communicate healthily. We want each other to achieve things and be happy. We both like each other as people. We are honest and upfront with each other. We like spending time together. We are getting married 8 months from now. Story 3. He was friends with my brother. He was always super nice and was such a wonderful dog dad that I knew he would be a wonderful father. We had been hooking up, and his roommate ended up getting a DUI and had to move back home from the college town they lived in. He needed a roommate to help pay rent, so I moved in and never looked back. We've been together for 15 years now, and he is the best husband and most amazing father to our 2 kids. Story 4. We met in graduate school. I wasn't interested in a relationship and wanted to concentrate on my studies. He said we can go out as friends, right? I said, I guess so. We found out we had a lot in common and had similar values and goals in life, not to mention the same career. Life has been good, and I was lucky to find my best friend and soulmate. We've been married over 15 years, and I couldn't imagine being with anyone else in this lifetime or any other. Story 5. We worked together. He sent out an email saying he was quitting. I always thought he was handsome, so I emailed him saying we should meet up for a goodbye drink. Our company offered him more money and a better position in the company, so he ended up not quitting. We met up getting a drink anyway. Neither of us were sure what we were for months. We got drinks after work and went on dates, but weren't physical because we worked together. One day we went hiking and then back to his house. It was a beautiful day, and we were on the hammock. He kissed me, and the rest is history. Soon after he moved in with me, we got engaged a few months later. We were married 3 months after we got engaged. We had our son the next year. We are very happy together, and I am thankful for him every day. Story 6. I found myself suddenly single at 31. Still single at 32, but after being in a long-term relationship for years, I was enjoying the freedom. A friend invited me her housewarming party. Not long after I arrived, I locked eyes with this guy, and we both smiled. I am rather shy, and it took me 3 attempts to get the courage to talk to him. Been together 18 years, married 16, and have 4 kids. Story 7. I knew her younger sister, who invited me to a Christmas party at their house. I was 16. The older sister was a tiny, pretty little blonde. Met her there, but she started going out with another friend. 3 months later, she dumped him. We all hung out at an open house meant to keep we juvenile delinquents off the street. Myself and 4 or 5 of my friends were standing in a circle outside smoking, and she stepped out of the hall. One of the guys pulled her into the circle. She was pretty, remember? And we started pushing her guy to guy to guy around the circle. We were 16, remember? When she got to me, she threw her arms around my neck and wouldn't let go. Even I can take that hint. She was my first GF. That was in 1971. She is downstairs right now drinking tea. Story 8. When I was 18, I heard a guy my age talking about books with his friends at a bookstore closing. All right, Borders, and just crashed his conversation. 6 months later, we were engaged. We've been together for 10 years now and have been married for half of it. Story 9. Met someone who I knew was exactly what I wanted. Waited. Worked on myself for 4 years. Got to know myself better. Came to a better place personally. And then made my move. I found out on our first date that the feelings were always mutual and that they had never asked me out due to respect for my ex who is a friend of theirs. It was the long game for sure, but the right one. I remember thinking, I wanted to be ready for it if anything ever happened between us, and I don't think we would be where we are if we had tried to date earlier. We were pretty young and still had a lot of living and learning to do. We've been together for 6 years now and are expecting our first baby this summer. So, story 10. By being myself and finding someone who does the same. If you and the other person are 100 truly yourself around each other and 100 enjoy every minute of it, you just may have found the one. Also, never try to change them. It will build resentment. Instead, work on accepting them and expect that they do the same. Story 11. Had some German jerk try to haul me off my first day in Berlin. He stopped to ask me a question when I was in Tiergarten and proceeded to grab me by the wrist and refused to let me go and started dragging me away. I completely clammed up, couldn't shout or anything. I had a friend text me at the right moment, and I managed to convince him that she was actually waiting for me at a nearby U-Bahn stop and would be worried if I didn't meet her. He only let me go after I opened mouth, kissed him goodbye, and gave me his number, which he made me call so he was sure I had the right one. I was really shaken but still wanted to go out that night, as it was the first of the 2014 World Cup. I also wanted to go somewhere where I could talk to people in English who were native speakers because I was very fudged dealing with Germans at that point. So I Googled Irish bar Berlin football, found a place, and sat at the bar when I got there. Within a few minutes, a cute Irish barman asked me for my drink order. After he got me a pint, he asked if I was alone. I told him I was, and he make it his job to chat shoot with me whenever he wasn't doing his rounds, which was most of the game because he was trying to stay out of the way of the TVs. It helped me relax after the awful day I had. After the match, I got up to leave, and he asked if I'd stick around and have a few drinks with him while they closed, and I agreed. The Irish bartender is now my husband, and we live in Berlin. Story 12. Craigslist. I put an ad up in the non-casual encounters page and got one response. We emailed back and forth for a couple of days, and then I asked her out that weekend. We went to dinner and it lasted like 3 hours. An older couple next to us asked us how long we'd been married. We told them it was our first date, and the woman said we seemed so comfortable with each other. We've been together 9 years and married 6. Story 13. I was 17-year-old me working at the bus station auto garage my grandpa owned. It was spring break week, so we were expecting heavy tourism traffic. Things were running along smoothly when this Toyota Highlander pulled up. The dad and oldest daughter got out and went inside. I started pumping the gas and checking the tires. Jen, they came back in. I noticed the band on her shirt was my favorite band, so I simply just sang a line from one of my favorite songs by them. She looked my way and finished the lyric. I took that as a sign that I should talk to this girl more. It was brief, but I got enough information to know where she was staying for the week and a coffee date at 6 p.m. that night. One date led to 3 more times, seeing her before she left, and us deciding to do a long-distance relationship. So many thought it would fail and that we couldn't do it, but as we get ready to celebrate our 20-year anniversary of our first date, we're still proving the critics wrong. Story 14. First, I worked on myself by taking up hobbies and working out. This naturally built up my confidence. Then I expanded my social circle by going to meetups. I met a couple people who I'd consider friends. Then I met friends of those friends. Before I knew it, someone had come along who took an interest in me. We became fast friends and figured out we shared each other's values. She asked me out, and we've been together for 4 years. Story 15. I was working at a Packers bar during my second round of college. She was a Packers fan and came there out of curiosity. I thought she was super cute, so I told her I liked her glasses and we chatted. Let her leave without getting her number. Next day, she came back to give me her number. We talked and realized we had a lot in common, like weird stuff. Both same age, 31. Both no kids, both had a significant other die while we were dating them, both live and breathe football. Her dad coached high school for 30 years, and her uncle is in the NFL Hall of Fame. Same clothing taste, so on and so on. She came over to my house to hang out and never left. Got married 9 months later. That was 7 years ago. Edit. I misremembered on her uncle being in the Hall of Fame. He was in a Super Bowl, was nominated for the HOF, never got in. Story 16. Completely by accident. We were friends in college. I thought he was cute, funny, caring, and thoughtful. He had a girlfriend, so I let it go. moved on, stayed friends, but secretly hoping. In the spring, he and his girlfriend broke up. It hit him pretty hard. We hung out more. I kept inviting him to events to make sure he didn't get estranged from the friend group. One day, neither of us wanted to go our afternoon classes and we went to lunch instead. He insisted he pay for lunch. I counted that as a date. He did not. About 2 weeks later, that I asked if he wanted to go on another date, and he was confused but agreeable. 16 years later, married for 6, happiest I've ever been. He's still the man I fell for all those years ago. I will love him forever. Story 17. Did nothing in particular. Had a very small friend circle. Tends to get smaller when you apply firm boundaries. Stop pretending to be okay to make others feel better, and stop taking their BS. And had stopped going to clubs and bars and whatnot. Also, I worked with 99.9 women, so the chances of getting together with a colleague was almost non-existent. Online dating was not for me. Tried it, but I disliked the artifice of dating and realized very quickly I would never meet anyone that way. Figured with my lifestyle being as it was, I would have to make peace with the reality that it might never happen for me. And I did. Relaxed into truly loving my life, traveled, and counted my blessings. Then one day, had a conversation with someone who worked in another part of the business I worked at. He had been there for almost 3 years, and I never noticed him. But he was very cute, and I was about to go travel the world for 3 months. So I agreed to meet for drinks. Over a decade later, here we are, married with a beautiful child. Love your life and be true to you. You just never know. Story 18. Plenty of fish. It's a funny story. I was scrolling through the site at work, saw his profile and didn't send a message. Regretted it, but of course didn't jot down his profile name at all. So later that night, I went back in POF and found out how to see all the profiles I'd recently viewed. Found him and sent him the first message. 4 kind of awkward dates later, the first where I jokingly offered to steal him a board game from the place we had dinner at, one where we were going for a walk after dinner, but only made it half a block before we got to where his car was parked, so he basically was like, see ya, and left me to walk alone to my car in the dark in a less favorable area of town. And we were official. 3 years later, we adopted a cat, got married, and bought a house together. And I still am stupidly smitten with him. Love of my life. Story 19. Honestly, I always say he found me rather than the other way around. I was a wallflower at a social event my then friend invited me to and promptly abandoned me at. Not knowing anyone else, I basically just sat in a corner and waited for it to end, my usual anxious go-to move. My now husband noticed and didn't want me to be bored and alone, so he came over and just started chatting until we'd found a few commonalities. He asked for my phone number at the end of the event, and just under 3 years later, we got married. Amusingly, we were both actively trying to date online when we met, but we're on different websites, so never would have found each other that way. I'm just thankful my husband isn't afraid to talk to strangers, because I wouldn't have had the guts to start talking first. His advice is always start by asking simple questions about themselves, as it's easy for them to answer. Most people like to talk about themselves, and you can gauge how willing they are to keep chatting from there. Story 20. I had just gotten out of an extremely abusive relationship and moved back home. I really wasn't looking for anything and just wanted a job to get me back on my feet. So I was hired at a crappy warehouse processing clothing. It was a good start, and I was just focused on getting my life back together, healing the bruises around my neck, which stayed for months after I left. And I was convinced I would never fall in love with someone normal. I was 2 days into this new job, and one of my coworkers was getting hit by tape balls. I pulled back a rack of clothing to find who was responsible, only to reveal some devilishly handsome jerk that I'm now married to. He's not normal, but in the best of ways. Story 21. First uni class ever. There she was, sitting first row with her blue hair, piercings, Converse, black nails, dark shirt, and scratched shorts. It was an instant crush. It took me 3 years to make her my GF, and we have been in a relationship for 5 years now. Story 22. This is going to be an unpopular answer, and not just because of its length. The thing is, most people approach dating in entirely the wrong way. See, folks often make the mistake of romanticizing romance. We've been taught to expect heady emotions, smoldering gazes being cast through candlelight, and almost audible choruses of angels singing out during first kisses. With those concepts in mind, it's no wonder that many of us try to semi-consciously maintain as much mystery as we can, if only because our incomplete impressions of potential partners are much more alluring than reality. Nobody wants to focus on incompatibilities, so we tend to ignore them for as long as possible. Following from that, the most important part of looking for the one is knowing yourself. And I mean really knowing yourself, not just creatively adjusting your personal traits until you end up with something that looks appealing from certain angles. We all have flaws, and we're all perpetually in progress works. So starkly honest introspection is essential before entering into a relationship. Once you have a handle on who you really are and who you're likely to become, you can start asking yourself why you want to find a companion. If you're just lonely, bored, or desiring of good company, then you should dismiss those feelings before you think about asking someone out. Much like it's a bad idea to go shopping while hungry, it's a bad idea to go dating while restless. And in the moment itch, even a long-lasting one won't be much of a foundation once it's scratched. Now, all of this probably seems like it's more philosophical than real-world applicable, but when taken together, it results in an understanding of what and who will make you happiest. Then, when you meet a likely candidate, you can focus on all of the deal breakers and must-haves that each of you bring to the table. Try to envision a life together, a real life, full of all the mundanities, struggles, problems, and responsibilities that you're likely to encounter as a couple, and assess if you'd both be eager to live it with the other person. Outline your political views. Be unabashedly open about your likes and dislikes. Describe how you actually spend your free time, not how you think you're supposed to occupy yourself. In short, do your best to drive away anyone who isn't right for you and for whom you wouldn't be right. If you're casually dating, then it's fine to stick with surface-level interactions. But if you're looking for someone with whom you can spend the rest of your life, be a lot more skeptical and selective. Above all else, remember that humans are remarkably like puzzle pieces. This almost fits, almost always ends up causing more pain and trouble in the long run than this doesn't fit at all. It's tempting to say, hey, we can work through that. But the truth of the matter is that people usually end up relaxing into their natural states. If you're consistently working on being the best version of yourself, then there's no shame at all in having a first date also be a last date. Now, personally, I took a bit of a brute force approach to finding the woman I'd eventually marry. I downloaded Tinder, the dating application with the largest number of users, then put together a profile that offered a starkly honest description of who I was and whom I wanted to find. Needless to say, it didn't attract too much attention. Still, I kept swiping through pictures whenever I had some time to eliminate, which did include occasional bouts of electronic speed dating while on the toilet and after paying for the gold version of the application. I took to digitally traipsing around the globe, setting my location to various countries' capitals. This wandering wasn't entirely aimless, though. By that point in my life, I'd done far more than my fair share of dating, and I devised an abjectly stupid equation that was supposed to help me locate a perfect match. There were variables for things like age, cultural similarities, personality traits, attractiveness, political leanings, and so on. And I'd concluded that there were likely to be between 7 and 11 ideal mates for me on the planet. After making my way through England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, I decided to haunt Edinburgh for a little while, which led me to connect with an incredibly brilliant, stunningly beautiful Swedish woman with a doctorate degree in hard science. We started conversing within minutes of matching, and when the discussion turned to our respective strategies for using Tinder, she told me, without any prompting or priming, that she had also written an equation that was supposed to help her locate her soulmate. Shortly thereafter, I booked a flight to Scotland. The rest, as they say, is history. And approaching doubting it in this way may seem like it removes the romance from the situation, but that's a good thing. Long-lasting relationships aren't all flowers and orchestral swells. They're the products of individual lives intertwining, and individual lives always require work. The good news, however, is that if you find the right person, the person who complements and improves your existence just as much as you complement and improve theirs, the romance will blossom entirely on its own. Just remember to keep gardening after that flower has started to grow. TLDR. If you're looking for the one, be ready to dismiss or be dismissed by literally everyone else. Answer. Besides the pure dumb luck of it all, my advice is always the same in a much abridged version of your story. Pursue interests and try to determine how you would find someone like yourself by looking for yourself. I found my lady by happenstance in the process of trying to prepare my mind and body to date. I was researching exercise, psychology, college, and just happened to stop in a local shop which she owned. I was patronizing her business for about 6 months before I realized the sparks were there. Story 23. was in a graphic design class. There was this exchange program where students could go to a neighboring school to take different courses using their equipment, so we had some students I didn't recognize. One of these students was this bombshell with red hair, and I felt like I got hit by a series of sledgehammers in the chest. I walked up thinking to myself, this is your moment. Be cool, be suave, be sexy, be attractive. I tripped, fell down right next to her table, hitting my head on the floor pretty hard. As I was getting up, she laughed, and I looked her dead in the eyes and said, I like your shoes. One thing led to another, and after some awkward series of events, we got together. While we took a break in college due to distance, for a time we got back super fast afterwards and been happily together for 15 years. Story 24. Met her while dating her sorority sister about 16 years ago. She was working at the mall in fragrance and helped me buy an Xmas gift for my dad. Immediately thought I wasn't in the right relationship, but I didn't have the self-confidence to break off the wrong relationship for the right one. I then ran into her briefly, maybe twice over the next 1.5 years at parties until we ended up on the same trip together. I remembered her, but she didn't remember me. We immediately clicked on the trip. I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I ended my current relationship and started dating my now wife. We've been married nearly 10 years, have 2 children, and are very happy. Best chain of decisions I ever made. Story 25. Work on your own happiness. Be comfortable in your skin. Be genuine, curious, and flexible. Put a smile on your face. Be positive and interact with the world. You'll attract others. You'll enjoy the world around you, and you'll be open to possibilities. Then I randomly talked to the girl next to me at a concert. Story 26. You have to kiss a lot of frogs. Go out with anyone who asks and ask PPL out. I guarantee if you ask out 3 PPL, one will say yes, and that's good enough odds for me. Don't think a date means a relationship. It's like trying in shoes. Also, don't expect fireworks and Cupid. Look for stability and kindness in similar interests. Handsome is nice to wake up to, but kindness lasts forever. Edit. Never give up. I met mine at 35, had a baby at 39, got married at 43, and had second baby a month later. Don't expect to be rescued by a man, and remember it's you two against a problem, not against each other. Story 27. I broke up with my ex, and a few months later, I was at my restaurant job, serving a table of 2 50-ish parents and their cute 20-something son. They left after their meal, but the son came back, told me I was cute, and gave me his number. We've been together 8 years, married in 2020. He's the best person to ever walk into my life, and I shudder to think about all the little things that could have prevented us from meeting. We're so good together. Many times we've had strangers ask us if we're on a first date when we've gone out because it's clear we really enjoy each other's company. Story 28. Went with a guy I knew to visit his girlfriend because there was going to be a single friend there. By the end of the night, I was talking to his girlfriend and they were broken up. Dated on and off for a few months before making it official. Married 24 years with 3 kids, but she passed away much too early at 41 years old earlier this year. My heart is forever broken, and I will never find anyone that can make me as happy as she did. Answer, I was widowed at 40, losing forever one of the 2 smartest, most beautiful women I had ever met. I was sure my life would never be that good again. About 14 months later, I met the other of the 2 on OkCupid. Both of us were coming off tragedy and were never getting married again. That was 2010. We got married in 2015, and she's sleeping next to me right now. People can find that joy twice, I swear. Story 29. I wasn't looking. I had had some pretty terrible experiences, so I decided to just concentrate on my career. I started a new job, and he worked next door. We socialized in the same group. He asked me out. I accepted. The first date was well thought out, but more importantly, he was kind and funny. We talked a lot. We've been married for 27 years, and we have 3 children. He has stood by me through thick and thin. A lot of life happens in 27 years. I had never experienced having someone who 100 has my back, and I have his. Story 30. When I wasn't looking for anything at all, I went through a rough point in my life in college my sophomore year. My grandfather had just been diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and 2 friends from high school died in unrelated tragic accidents within 2 days of each other. One a plane crash, one a car accident. On top of that, I was struggling socially due to a falling out with my friends freshman year because they screwed me over on housing a day before the housing lottery. Fortunately, I worked something out with some other people to get a nice suite with 3 other girls for my sophomore year, but I was pretty depressed. I was struggling in school because of the problems in my personal life. I became reclusive and made it a point to focus on nothing but my studies for the next year. No friends, no relationships, just studies. I was incredibly lonely. When I met the love of my life, I was studying. Shocker. It was finals week, and despite my best efforts, I was studying alone in my room for a final for a class I knew I was going to fail. It was around this time that my roommate at the time knocked on my door and suggested I come study with her and a mutual friend in the engineering building. I was really hesitant, but then she said, "Let me rephrase, you're coming with me." So I went. In that study room in the engineering building, I met the love of my life, who was brought along by a friend of a friend. He was a friend of a friend of a friend. It always seems like it was fate to me because of that alone. A few hours into the evening, I asked anyone if they wanted to come get donuts in one of the dining halls. No one responded except for my now boyfriend, who wanted to go. I promptly ignored him because I was socially anxious and worried about having conversation with someone I didn't know at all. 15 minutes later, I asked again. Same thing happened, and this time my love for donuts outweighed my social anxiety, and I decided to go with him. On the walk over, we had a deep conversation, and I really opened up to him. Turns out he was having a lot of the same problems. It felt like I was being heard for the first time in a long time. At the end of the night, he asked me for my number so we could study for our physics exam together. Very smooth, haha. The next day, he sent me a long text message that was incredibly endearing. I sent it to my mom and my sisters jokingly saying, "I think this guy is in love with me." After finals, before we left for break, I told him I didn't want whatever this was to end. And he asked me, "Would you want to be my girlfriend?" And I just said yes. And that was that. We have been together for 6 years now, and I still love him every bit as much as I did then. No clue how I got so lucky. I really do think it was fate sometimes. You always find the right person at exactly the moment you resign yourself to being lonely forever. TLDR. Met him studying for a final at one of the lowest points in my life. Story 31. Went to my 10-year high school reunion. Barely any of our class was there, let alone anyone single. Ended up getting smashed because they gave us an open bar last minute. Went to a bar afterwards with my now wife, and then went back to her house and hooked up. She was living with her parents at the time, as I think she had just gotten out of a relationship with someone who lived on the other side of the state. When we showed up at her door, her mom was still up and started trying to talk to us. I worked with her mom for a few years and eventually got the hint. Still together 7 years later, house, kids, pets all. Story 32. She had a crush on my ugly jerk. I ignored her for years. One day she helped me find someone's house, and I finally started to notice her. Then she was everywhere, and I couldn't ignore her. So I said, screw it, and she said, "You're mine now." I don't think I could get rid of her if I tried. Not that I would want to. She is fire AF. Story 33. It didn't happen for me until I was 40, and I certainly wasn't looking. He was with someone else, and so was I. But neither of us were truly happy. Long story short is we're married now and doing well. I think there is someone for everyone. And honestly, as cliche as it sounds, when you know, you know. I was 40 years old and had been proposed to before, but never took that step. With my current husband, it was something different. I was working at one of his favorite restaurants, and he used to come in on a regular, just as a customer. One day I had to make a delivery to his house, and we started talking. We actually became friends and talked mostly over the phone for a while. But it was obvious that there was something there that we couldn't deny. We both ended our relationships before pursuing anything other than friendship. There was just something about him, and apparently there was something about me that made us both willing to risk it all to be together. We didn't know if it was going to work, and we didn't know if we were making the right choice, but I'm very glad we did. I do believe there's someone for everyone. It's just a matter of when you meet them. Some people meet young, and others it takes to 40 like myself, some even older. Don't rush it. Love comes when it comes, and not when you're looking. Best of luck to you, and stay well. Story 34. I met my husband when I was 15, he was 17. It was his first shift at Central Library in our city, and my first thing visiting the library. Had recently moved to the city. I asked him how many books I can sign out at once. We started chatting, and he offered to help me apply for a job there. Went to get the application papers from the desk, and I have yet to see them 16 years later now. LOL. I had just attempted tragic end earlier that year. I had to switch schools for the 4th time. I was going through one of the worst times of my life, and we met when I was barely living, let alone looking for a relationship. Edited. Spelling. Story 35. In 2012, I was 23 and I was hired as a preschool teacher for kindercare. During my interview, the school manager, 31, told me she had a best friend I would be perfect for. She even pulled up his Facebook in her office to show me. I was closed off to the idea and didn't think much of it until I pulled in the parking lot on my first day and suddenly became open-minded because why not? During my first training exercise, my boss came in the room with her phone out in her hand and asked, "Do you have a boyfriend?" Me. No. Her. Do you want one? Me, it depends. Her, can I have your number? Me, well, since you are the store manager. Sure, that was on June 12th, 2012. My husband and I are celebrating our 8th wedding anniversary on December 31st this year. I took a chance and met the love of my life. I did leave kindercare after 8 months due to a hostile work environment. The same boss got very jealous of my relationship with her alleged best friend. She would lie and text him stuff while I was at work and shoot-talk me to him whenever they were together. Very toxic and desperate behavior. She went as far as to have her boyfriend crash into my parked car outside of my boyfriend, her friend's house in the middle of the night. The neighbor across the street not only witnessed the accident, he had video cameras capture my boss boyfriend's vehicle directly hitting my parked car and stole my Burberry sunglasses and my sound deck. Story 36. Took time off dating and looking for someone to make me happy. Relearned how to make myself happy. Focused on hobbies I used to enjoy and spent time with friends and family who matter to me the most. Basically spent the year healing from past trauma and on grounding myself, and as a result, I changed. My depression and anxiety disorder both went into remission in a surprisingly short while, 3 months after 16 years. My friends all noticed a significant change in my mood and energy levels. I was truly happy for the first time in over a decade, and I guess it showed. People are drawn to those who are at peace with themselves. Just be your most authentic self, and everything else will present itself to you. If you don't know who your authentic self is, take the time to reflect and figure out what you truly want in life. Face your trauma and get help if you need it. There are endless, free, online resources. I started with guided grounding meditation videos on YouTube and kind of went from there. Story 37. Pure luck. Met in a chat room and we pretty much only started DMing each other by chance too. It was almost 2 years before we met in person the first time, and our first date was nearly a year after that. We've been long distance since then, but made the gap smaller over the years, and we'll close it for good soon. It's not just pure luck that meant we met, it's pure luck both of our lives managed to work out in a way to allow us to grow and maintain our relationship across the miles. Story 38. I was dating his best friend and roommate. That's a fun one-liner to tell people, but the reality is that I only went on a couple dates with the friend and we were not compatible. In the end, the friend introduced me to my now husband and thought we were a much better match. We're all still good friends. Story 39. I was tipsy, coming home from a night with friends. I got a spam email from eHarmony saying I could have a free weekend trial. I thought, what the hell, might as well. Couldn't see anyone's photos because it was a pretty rubbish free weekend. I clicked on his profile but didn't do anything. He actually messaged me, thank God, and we spent the weekend messaging. At the end of the weekend, I gave him my number. We had 3 dates across 4 days and have now been together 9 years. Thank heavens for spam emails. Story 40. The internet. Way back when OkCupid was free and asked a ton of questions. Went on dates, found someone that was amazing and whose personality and attitude complemented mine. We are a great pair and love doing things for one another and being thoughtful. We argue sometimes, but it's never loud and we aren't trying to win. Just be understood, which is easily because we both want to understand each other. It's really great. Story 41. I saw him performing at a summer children's reading program at a library where I was the assistant to the child specialist. I wanted to talk to him as soon as the show was over, but before I had the chance, my boss asked me to do paperwork in the back. He was going by the time I was done. Fast forward a few months, and I'm at college in the dining hall with some friends. The same guy from the library comes and sits at our table because he was apparently friends with my friends, and I hadn't met him yet. We immediately hit it off before I realized he was the same guy from the library. We've been inseparable pretty much ever since. Story 42. We were the first 2 people to arrive for a mutual friend's wedding. Since everyone else, including the bride and groom, had apparently gone out and gotten absolutely hammered the night before, we had at least a good hour to wait and talk. After everything was over that night, we sat and talked some more and exchanged numbers. We saw each other a few times over a couple of months, but it was a while before we officially started dating. Been together 17 years, married not quite 14. Story 43. Open up to meeting a variety of people and don't settle on a type. He's covered in tattoos and I'm a school librarian. I met mine at a biker bar. A friend worked there, so I had been before, but we went with her to hang out there on her birthday. He was a friend of hers who came as well. We hit it off and dated for 6 years and have been married for 6 months. Story 44. Summer after freshman year of college. A good friend of mine from high school had a little movie party. I looked over at her at one point and my brain said it would be nice to hold her. We had met in 7th grade, pre-algebra, dated through the rest of college, been married 17 years now. Story 45. I was having a girls' game night with my friends. My best friend asked to invite her boyfriend, now husband, and his friends to our Discord chat. We weren't too excited since we had been trying to have girls' night for a long time, but we agreed to avoid any drama. I hadn't met any of the guys, but I did know a bit about them from my best friend. The guys join and everyone says hi. Then I hear this one guy speak, let's call him Ryan, and I was just blown away. It sounds silly to hear, but I literally fell for Ryan just from the sound of his voice. I thought it was going to be a dumb crush that led nowhere, especially since I figured I'd never talk to him after that night. Maybe around 2 a.m., it was just me, Ryan, and my other friend Maddie left in the Discord call. I had asked her to stay in the call because I was nervous being alone with him. We talked until the sun came up, and it felt like we had just started talking. I figured we'd never talk again, especially considering that he was 3 years older than me. Until a few days later when I get a message from Ryan saying, hey, don't be a stranger. And from there, we messaged each other almost every single day, eventually having hours-long phone calls. After about 2 to 3 months, we decided to meet in person. We've been together for 5 years with our 2 cats. We don't intend to get married for several reasons, but we both agree that we're life partners. Story 46. 25 and still single, never had a girlfriend, despite several crushes that went nowhere. Finally fed up and joined a dating site. Didn't go anywhere. Signed out. Got a crush again. Nope. Rejected. Joined another dating site, which worked better. No results except more frustration. Quit again. 26 years old now. Tried to date a girl who seemed interested. Didn't feel any sparkle. Laid it low for the rest of the year. Felt frustrated again and joined a third dating site. Soon got the feeling this wasn't going anywhere again. Then some girl started to chat with me. From there, we spoke over Skype. She sent me a picture. We met for real. Started to have more dates. While it took quite long for me to feel sure about it, there just was a certain chemistry from the start. And that is what must done the trick. It was over 5 years ago now. We are married and planning to have kids. No regrets. Story 47. I was frustrated with my type of guy. I met a lot of them and somehow it never went anywhere or it ended in weird places. I decided I'd just swipe right indiscriminately and go out with a rando just to prove to myself I'm capable of having a normal date with a normal person. Swiped right on someone who was the opposite of the kind of guy I usually went out with. Said rando was 25 minutes late to our date and came in just as I was going to GTFO. He had difficulty making eye contact for the first 10 minutes. Anyway, he's feeding our daughter now as I goof on my phone. Story 48. I married my buddy's stepdaughter. He's 15-ish years older than me. I met her at his surprise 40th birthday party. I had my Canon DSLR taking pictures of everyone, and she talked to me because she always wanted to be a photographer. We hit it off and ended up talking all night. I had already known a lot about her because my buddy would vent to me about her problems a lot, mainly her choice in men. We texted heavily over the few months, and I even took her fishing one evening. She still had a boyfriend, but had been trying to leave him for a while. They were living together. When I felt like she was just dragging me along, I stopped talking to her. A year and a half later, her new boyfriend was in jail, and she started talking to me again. Basically picked up right where we left off and started dating. I moved into her apartment after 4 months, proposed after 18-ish months on her birthday, and we've been married for 2 months now. Story 49. I was super happy with myself being alone without a partner for about 6 months. I enjoyed being alone, enjoyed my own company, went to the gym every day after work, went out occasionally and had some fun without worrying about keeping someone else happy. I met her at the gym, found out she smoked, and eventually asked for her number so we could go for coffee. I had no thought of the future. I just wanted to chat to her. She seemed interesting. I invited her to a concert I played in after chatting for a day. That night when we went out for drinks after the concert, I knew I was going to marry her. 4 years this year. Happiest time of my life. Story 50. A dating app. Do make your profile as if you are trying to attract the one and perfectly willing to scare off everyone else. Highlight your quirks and honest interest. Don't make your profile trying to attract as many people as possible. That's how you avoid junk matches with all the other people who are lying, as well as basic people with no personalities. Story 51. Sophomore year of college, there was a girl hanging around our floor, only male floor of this dorm, who, as it turned out, had a crush on my roommate, who was coming to terms with being gay at the time. She eventually befriended us, and after a couple months realized that we'd never met her roommate, who was introverted, so you'll get along with her, Regal. We go up and meet her. She seems nice, quiet, but since it was a meeting new people thing, I understood, and was playing a game I also enjoyed, so we talked a little bit about that, but otherwise not a lot happened. As we were leaving, though, I had what I thought was an intrusive thought, since I was suffering from those at the time. That was the girl you're going to marry. Didn't pay it any mind, but since I was already friends with her roommate, we wound up getting to know each other more, and eventually clicked to the point we were spending more time together than not. Asked her out after a couple months, and after an initially positive reaction, she decided she wasn't in a good place to be dating anyone at the time. So after a couple weeks of awkwardness, where neither of us were really handling the situation all that well, we settled back into being friends. By the time I graduated, we were one of each other's best friends, and we kept talking after college. I was completely fine being her friend. She was an awesome person, and I wanted her in my life, even if not in a romantic sense. We were constantly poked by friends, or at least I was, about how we should at least try dating, since we acted like a couple in their eyes. Just a non-romantic one. Finally, after a weekend where she was over with another couple friends, and while eating out, the waitress asked if we were on one, we just sat down and talked it out. It turns out we'd both been in a similar situation where we'd come to kind of want a relationship, but didn't want to ruin our friendship by bringing it up after how questionable the first one made things for a while. We agreed to try dating on the condition we'd go back to friends no matter what, since we couldn't imagine not being in each other's lives. Honestly, that probably should have told us it'd work well. Married, have a house, all that jazz. Story 52. Knew her for a while. She sometimes came to my village when there were festivals and other activities. Got myself so tipsy I, for the second time in my life, dared to kiss a girl. Always was shy when it came to romance. Been together for almost 7 years now. She's actually born on the exact same day as me, no Alabama, and it felt like we were made for each other. Never had a fight in all those years. Story 53. My hubby and I met on the job. He was in IT, and I was in customer service. We had to keep it secret, though, until we left, because they did not allow fraternization. I wasn't really looking for love at the time. That's what's funny. I had been single for 4 years, but we just clicked. I never was one to believe in finding your soulmate, but from the moment we met, I just knew. Story 54. I had started a new job with a boss I got along with really well. One night, her husband and daughter brought us dinner. While sitting around, her daughter said she knew a guy I should meet. I've fought it for 6 months. Since we are all gamers, I got invited to a bridge simulation game called Artemis. We showed up with quick introductions as everyone moved around getting ready. While playing, I enjoyed listening to our calm voice. Later that night, he ended up bringing me coffee and cookies, then flirting through last couple of games. We went outside after it was over to chat amongst ourselves. He asked for my number, then ended the night with a surprise kiss. That next day, we talked on phone a short bit. That Monday, I went to his house for dinner and chatting. That will be 7 years ago this coming April. We've never looked back. Now we've had to learn to communicate better as both from different worlds. Other than that, he spoils me. Thankfully, he understands my disability, being by my side throughout all my surgeries. I'm helping him heal from a past that haunts him. We have a connection strong in a way I didn't know was possible. Story 55. Dated a girl I was mad about and had all the plans for the future with for 8 years. Got dumped via text message at work, dealt with regular gaslighting and being strung along, downloaded dating apps, met someone who was basically me, but a busty ginger, realized what it was like to be in a healthy relationship and not treated like garbage. Honestly, incredible how it worked out. Story 56. Playing League of Legends with my friends. He moved away in high school, but one of them kept in contact with him. We started playing a lot together, talking on Skype a lot. Then I went to a watch party for the World's Championship at their dorm, and we just fell hard for each other immediately. Haha XD. We were catching feelings talking online, but we're like, could be different in person. But it wasn't. He's amazing. We're getting married in June 3. Story 57. I was sitting in front of her on an airline flight. She dropped something, so I bent over and turned around to give it back. When we locked eyes, my brain completely shut off. Then the drink cart hit me in the back of the head. When I woke up, she was holding a compress on my head, and we've been together 20 years. Story 58. My girlfriend found me. I was in a really terrible place at the time, and she flew over to take care of me. She looked after me, and if it wasn't for her, I genuinely doubt I'd still be here. I fell for her, but didn't want it to be codependent or any other twisted thing my body did in grief. I confessed my feelings, and she reciprocated. She moved to the UK, and we have been together 12 years now. She's my angel and savior. Story 59. The first thing I ever said to him was something along the lines of, "Hey, I accidentally deleted your friend request. Can you please send me another one?" Your privacy settings won't let me send one to you. Then we didn't talk much for years, even though we had each other added, until last year when he told me about a huge aspect of his life nobody else at the time knew about, even his family, which made talking to me the first time he had that safe space to be himself, which was when I got to know him and completely fell in love with him. He made my life so much better in every way. He got me out of a really dark mental place. Tons of people have told me how much more chill and friendly I am since he has shown me I deserve love and that I'm not a terrible person. For the first time in my life, I believe that I have a future and that I won't spend my life locked in the situation that fed up my mental health. The people who raised me were hella abusive. His mom even said that she would accept me as her own child. For the first time, I have a true family. I fell in love not just with him, but with his culture and family as well. I'm learning his native language as well that only has 8 million native speakers, which impresses people when I speak it. I love him whole with all his awesome weirdness, quirks, flaws, and imperfections. Rings are expensive. Story 60. After many failed relationships with people I chose myself, my brother introduced me to his friend over the phone one day. We were talking about UFOs and aliens, and my brother stopped and said, "I think you and my friend would get along well," and handed the phone to him. We talked for a bit, and then I added him to my FB friends. We lived on different sides of the USA too. After many months of talking and video chatting, I decided to come visit. Well, I came to visit and then just never left. 2 years later, I am engaged and have just given birth to his child. I'm happier than I've ever been in a relationship. Story 61. I met my fiancée when we were in elementary school. We sort of hung out time to time, but never really close. She also lived at the top of my street. After high school, I was walking to the store one day and seen her sitting outside, started a conversation with her, and that was it. We began dating and were together for 12 years. We got engaged a few years ago and both decided we would wait until we could afford the wedding we wanted. She passed on October 18th due to COVID, among other complications. Life sucks. Story 62. She cyber-stalked me for a few years, would call on the phone and not identify herself, sent me back orifice Trojans, invited me to visit her 2 states away. Then one NYE, I really needed to get out of the house, so I asked if the invitation was still open. It was, and she didn't mention the blizzard that was forecast for fear of dissuading me. It took me 14 hours and 2 highway collisions to make the 8-hour drive. And when I finally pulled into her driveway and saw her standing at the end of it, something just clicked and a huge weight was lifted because I knew with a sort of unshakable acceptance that we would get married. It'll be 23 years tomorrow. Story 63. Weird fate, honestly. We met originally 22 years ago through a mutual friend while they were doing a school project. I was drafted to help spray fake blood on a tree for their student horror film. I thought he was gorgeous. He reminded me of Devon Sawa. He didn't notice me, being too busy with the project. Over the next few years, I would briefly visit him at work, a theater, so I saw him when I'd watch films. And we flirted a bit, but I had massive rejection anxiety, so I never asked him to Denny's, where our podunk teens would hang out. Lost touch after that, reconnected after we both were married and divorced. Both young. He had 2 little kids. It took one conversation to know that was it. We talked for hours. We're so well matched, it's kind of annoying. Took so long to get together. We've been together 11 years so far. Come to find out that he had a huge crush on me back in the day, but was also afraid I was too cool for him. We also legitimately orbited each other for years. We were basically neighbors, but I moved away before he moved in. We hung out at the same places, but never at the same time. He was also friends with my best friend while they were in college, but I had moved out of state. Weird how things work. Story 64. She came to my house for a week to stay. Her parents are friends with my parents. We spent literally every second of that week together, slowly getting to learn about each other. Ever since, she's moved in with me, and I see her beautiful smile every day. Story 65. I found him in the friend zone. We had been friends for 12 years. I don't know if I friend zoned him or vice versa. Nothing had even happened between us, even on tipsy nights out. Our friends always said we should be together, but neither of us wanted to ruin our friendship. And then one night it just happened, and we've never looked back. We will be celebrating 10 years together in February. We've been through so much in those 10 years, 7 rounds of IVF and 2 miscarriages among them, which would tear many relationships apart, but it has only made us stronger. I cannot imagine my life without him. Story 66. I spent years looking, and then I decided I had to stop because craving love was hurting me more than I thought. I had to embrace love of my own, and that's when they came into my life with all the perfect qualities. They were the most amazing human being, and I instantly fell in love with them. I knew that I wanted them to be with me forever, and so I proposed the idea of being a couple. We both liked each other, so we agreed. I never really liked the stop-looking method, but at one point I just gave up, and then they came into my life, and I now love them more than anything. Story 67. This is going to sound funny, but I basically ignored her the first time we met. I was asked to pick up my stepsister and her friend and drive them to the mall so they could see a show. My stepsister introduced her friend, and to be honest, I really could have cared less, so just kinda grunted in acknowledgement. The next time her friend saw me, she made sure I couldn't ignore her. We have now been married just over 29 years. Story 68. Not on purpose. I had just decided I wanted to be single for a while and have some fun. Then I traveled to the Caribbean for a vacation, and that's where I met my partner. They were working at the resort and approached me. At first, it was friendly, but we had a lot in common. We're both attracted to each other, and things became romantic really quickly. We talked every single day after I returned to my country. We've been married for 6 years now. Story 69. I did a leadership program where I met him. He was dating someone else at the time, and while I knew I was attracted to him, the fact he was unavailable just meant we built a really solid friendship. We had that 1 year of pure friendship and just getting to know each other in a non-datey kind of way. After his relationship ended, we dated and have now been together 3 years total, married 1 year as of this past September. Story 70. He one day enrolled on the same place I was in, a cram school for the entrance exams, you could say. He sat 2 rows behind me and was with friends, same me. We never really talked until I left, and we've been together ever since. Some extra info is that we both were attracted to each other, but neither of us knew. So when we interacted, it was respectful, but we could feel something more. And that was why something was in the making for the both of us. Story 71. She started working at the same company on another team. I thought she was stunning, so engineered scenarios where I could work alongside her and see what she was like as a person. We found that we got on really well and started conversing more by email. Eventually, she asked if I'd like to go out for lunch. 16 years later, we're married with 2 kids. Story 72. Stop looking for what you think you need. It's often the person you do not expect that fits you best. My wife and I are very different people. She makes me better, and I make her better. We are both good at different things and have different interests, which means we both try new things all the time and find our favorite new things we probably would have never even tried ourselves. The thing that matters is respect for each other. Always assume the other person loves you and means well. Try and see whatever it is from their perspective, even if you don't agree. You can almost always at least agree that the other person's feelings are valid and start from there. My wife knows sometimes I get anxious and have panic attacks, and she doesn't take it personally and instead tries to calm me down and be there for me. She has a tendency to overreact to small stuff, treat something as way more serious than it is. So instead of fighting with her, I accept she's feeling upset and work on helping her find perspective first. Basically, we are each other's safety valve, and I can't imagine living life without her. You know what doesn't matter at all? Having the best-looking wife of all your friends. If you knew someone would make you happy for the rest of your life and be a true partner, would you really ask what they look like before accepting? Open up your filter a bit. Try finding the right person first and foremost, instead of the best-looking person you can, and then trying to force them to be your soulmate. Story 73. We were in the same college dorm hall. He was sitting outside of his room doing his chemistry homework. I walked past on the way back from class and introduced myself. We found out that we both had previously done projects on a certain substances, and I read his paper on it. Story 74. I was just doing something I enjoy. Honestly, we met at a karaoke bar near my place. She and her college friends went there too. A mutual friend caught me making the occasional glance her way and told me to take a shot. So I got a beer, asked her name, complimented her necklace, and now I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful 2-year little girl. Story 75. Met in college, both a little older than traditional college students. I was dating someone else who was deeply damaged, but who I loved and cared for dearly, almost like a child, but I just knew this other man was perfect for me in every way. It was a really rough time and painful decision, but I'm so glad I trusted my instincts and took the leap in the end. My mental health and entire life is so much healthier as a result, and I'm proud that I made the right decision as to who I'd eventually have a child with. My wonderful man and stable relationship we've created together is a 100 better environment for a baby to grow up in than what I could have provided before. Story 76. Actually, at a retail job at the lowest part of my life, went through a lot family situation. He stuck through it all. I eventually moved because I was done with their bullshit and moved in with him and his family. I've never got on or gotten along with anyone better. I've never had anyone I understand me so well or give a shoot about me. I've never had someone I've been able to laugh with for hours. I'm glad that he walked into my life when he did. Story 77. We met early in high school. We didn't have a fight for the first year of our relationship. We got to finish growing up together, so we share a lot of formative core memories with each other. 25 years later, I can say that relationships are work, but for us, it hasn't been grueling work. The only advice I can offer is to discuss your life goals early. We planned everything out within the first couple of years. We picked our children's names, number kinds of pets, jobs, and where we wanted to live together. Even though life didn't go 100 as we planned, it is close enough and we threw each other no curveballs. Story 78. Joined the Air Force at 18. Went to a MEP station in Portland. See cute guy. Cute guy is looking at me. Talk to cute guy. Exchange emails. Talk for 6 months via email. Start dating. Get engaged after a week. Get married after 2 years. Have an okay marriage. Break up and get back together. Think things are going better. Get heart smashed and move across country. Get divorced before it's finalized. Meet cute guy online. Becomes your boyfriend. Move in together after 4 months. Engaged after 3 years. Married after 6 months. Happily married now for 6.5 years to the best guy ever and thankful for the journey to get to him. Story 79. I was on a dance team with her. She also happened to be a Star Wars fan, so we talked about that. I was surprised to learn she was my age. We're both a little older than the average college student, so we bonded over that too. Ended up having a lot of great chemistry together, so we hit it off. I think the most important thing is patience in a healthy social life. I'm an introverted person, but I get lonely easily. Picture that. I learned in college that if I don't make an active effort to put myself out there friendship-wise, I wasn't going to be very happy. Clubs are important. It takes bringing yourself out even if you'd rather be at home playing games. Even if you think everyone thinks you're weird and they're just being polite. You got to be willing to learn how to act in a way that puts people at ease, not make them uncomfortable. I'm still an awkward person sometimes, but I'm miles better than how I used to be. Story 80. She actually found me LOL. She was my brother's fiance, best friend, and she messaged me and we awarded talking. Then she asked me to coffee. 3 weeks later, I asked her to be my girlfriend. And we've been together since, 2 years after I asked her to marry me. We would be married, but COVID happened. My first memory of her, though, she was wearing an Alice in Wonderland costume for Halloween. She had these white thigh highs on, and she bent over to put them on right in my view. Week I was over at my brother's place. Now her legs are mine. I love her so much. She's caring, takes good care of me. Yes, I take care of her too. She's sexy and a little freaky in bed. She's been trying her best to get more clients. She's a PSW and COVID tanked that too. I'm excited to spend the rest of my life with her. Story 81. She was in our group of friends, and we just started hanging out and never stopped. No blazing romance, no stars. She's just the one for me and me for her. In my experience, it's all about the work you put into the relationship. This shoot is hard work, yo. Any long-term relationship requires a fuck ton of sacrifice. Also, you both need to have interests outside each other. We've been together for 40 years this year. Married for third. Story 82. Met when we were both in middle school, science class, liked hanging out so much that we just sort of decided to do it all the time. Fast forward 14 years and we're married. I feel like I won the love lottery. No breakups, no unresolved fights, just worked out. Story 83. My husband, Max, and I met working together as librarians. We had worked together a few years, and I always had a little work crush on him. After about 2 years of working together, I had just broken up with this tool I used to date, and I started having dreams about Max. So I would come to work and tell our mutual 70-yo coworker my dreams every day, and we would laugh about them. Eventually, the 70-yo coworker told me I should just go for it and ask Max out. So I did it. Our library had a drive-through window. Yes, we were in a nice library, and I had checked the schedule and Max was working it. So to ask him out, I went and checked out a DVD in the library, and on the checkout receipt, I wrote my phone number and the message, "Let's get a beer sometime," and put it inside the case to hand to Max. My dumbass literally exited the building, hopped in my car, and drove through the drive-through to hand him the DVD. Balimfeo, so I give him this DVD, and I ask him to check and make sure the disc is inside, which would prompt him to open the case and see my note on top. But this guy is on autopilot and immediately throws the note out and says, yeah, the disc is in there, and checks it in. Lol, y'all should have seen my face. Pure horror. I accepted my fate and parked my car, simmering about the events that just transpired. But about 10 minutes later, I get a text from him saying he threw the receipt out, but he missed the trash, and when he went to pick it up and saw my note on it, lol, now we are married, own a house, and we are expecting our first child. He is the best partner. Story 84. I was originally trying to get a date with this one guy in my college class, and a recent friend I had made was helping me work up the courage to talk with him more. Me and said friend ended up getting closer and closer, and then, boom, we had a spontaneous kiss one night, and now I can't picture being with anyone or anywhere else than by their side. Story 85. Playing League of Legends with my friends. He moved away in high school, but one of them kept in contact with him. We started playing a lot together, talking on Skype a lot. Then I went to a watch party for the World's Championship at their dorm, and we just fell hard for each other immediately. Haha, XD. We were catching feelings talking online, but were like, could be different in person, but it wasn't. Story 86. Online dating.